Everyone, if members would take their seats and guests would also, call the meeting to order here in just a moment. We have a very special guest among all you special guests tonight, and I look forward to introducing our new chief judge for the 10th Circuit. Well, she's not so new. She's been on the job a few weeks. Judge Gorman, who I have known for many, many years. And I'm excited that she's come tonight to continue. Okay, Phil, I'll try to speak up. Can you hear me now, Phil? What do you say to that? It's like, I got to go to Steve Ricker on that one. Because he's like, be patient. All right. I'll call the meeting to order formally at 6:04. Please rise for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's to America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was perfect, everyone, and in three-part harmony. Madam Clerk.
Roll call. Board Member Duncan.
Here.
Get it. Board Member Renault.
Present.
Board Member Relaford.
Here.
Board Member Windish.
Here. Here.
Board Member Daly. You're not showing. Did you press your? It's not showing you here.
This is Member Rosenbaum. I'm here also.
Thank you. Board Member Salser.
Here.
Board Member Watkins, did you press your button? Not showing. Okay, 18 present.
Thank you. Before we go to the minutes, actually, we'll take the minutes. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes of January 14th? Thank you, Dr. Blair. And thank you, Mr. Ricker. Ms. Daly?
Yes.
Ms. Daly, you have the floor.
I have a correction. On the last page, under, I think it's miscellaneous and announcements, every time it says Medicare, it should be replaced by Medicaid.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, so motion on the floor is to accept the minutes with, would you move to amend that motion to include your correction of Scrivener's error?
Yes.
Thank you. And a second on that. Thank you, Mr. Fennell. Let's approve the amended motion, and then we'll come back.
And let me,
The amendment to the motion. You with me, clerk?
I will be in just a second.
Okay, I have to slow down a little bit, sorry.
There you go. Okay, so we're going to vote on the first.
Yes, so we would be voting, you want to do this by roll call? Or do you want to do it a combination of?
I already put in that we have the amendment on there, so we can do the amendment first.
Okay, so on the amendment to substitute for the word Medicare, the word Medicaid. All those in favor, please vote.
Oh. I thought I had it. Board Member Duncan,
I'm sorry, I was just plugged. I couldn't barely hear what was going on.
We're voting to correct in our minutes the word Medicare and correct all occurrences of that to Medicaid. We're voting on that first.
Yes, I.
Thank you.
Board Member Relaford,
Aye.
Board Member Renault,
Aye.
Board Member Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Board Member Sulzer,
Aye.
and Board Member Windisch.
Aye.
18 ayes.
Thank you. Now we will go back to voting on the motion as amended. And after 8.5 years as chairperson, I think I finally said that correctly. Are you ready, Madam Clerk?
One moment, please. You may vote.
Okay, so please vote on the motion as amended.
Board Member Duncan,
Aye.
Board Member Renault,
Aye.
Member Relaford,
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Member Sulzer,
Aye.
and Member Windisch.
Aye.
18 ayes, 0 nays.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for the good eyes, Member Daly. Now, with no further ado, if we could find our little hand microphone. Excellent. I'd like to be the first to introduce to the Peoria County Board version 2021, the new Chief Judge of the 10th Circuit of the mighty state of Illinois, Judge Kate Gorman.
Thank you, Chairman Rand, and thank you all for having me tonight. My name is Kate Gorman, and I took office as chief in January of this year, and I've gotten to know some folks around the county who have been extraordinarily helpful as we address COVID issues coming fast and furious. And our short-term goal is to gradually increase the in-person hearings with an eye towards protecting the citizens of Peoria County. To that end, we have increased jury trials to up to 2 per week, and with the help of folks here at the county, we screen them, we sanitize, we socially distance, we keep everyone in masks, and I had a jury trial last week with no problems at all, and I look forward to continuing to work collaboratively with all of you to serve the citizens of Peoria County, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Judge. Any questions for Judge Gorman? Judge, I have one question. There was another judge in the history of this county who had a very similar last name. I think when I moved here in 1991, there was a similar, was it spelled the same?
Yes, it was. Those of you may know my dad, John Gorman, and I'm very proud to be his oldest daughter, and he was actually the chief from 1994 to 1998. So.
Well, I'm sure he's very proud of you. So for those of you that don't know that history, like father, like daughter. Welcome, Judge. We'll do everything we can to help you be enormously successful.
Well, thank you. I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you.
Next, we would be at citizens' remarks, and there were none turned in to me.
Thank you. We have a very short meeting planned for tonight. We have an executive session regarding personnel and evaluations, compensation, which we will hear from Ms. Bestucia and her cohort on that. I think Rachel is on the line. Do I have that right? Okay. But I thought since the meeting was going to be so short tonight, and of course that's always the kiss of death when you say something like that. Tomorrow happens to be Lincoln's birthday. I don't know how many of you know that. How many of you knew that before you came in tonight? Oh my gosh, look at all these people in the know. Well, I think if you'll tolerate me for about 4.5 minutes, I'd like to read something about Lincoln and his birthday, because it certainly fits the time. And he's our fella from Illinois, although his trail runs through Kentucky and Indiana before being a permanent fixture in this state. Unique in that way that he's one president claimed by 3 states, and I think we pretty much said it with the license plates that we got him. Most Americans would be surprised to learn that Abraham Lincoln's birthday, February 12, 1809, has never been celebrated as a federal holiday. The day is often erroneously associated with President's Day, which is actually officially Washington's birthday, and it's celebrated on the 3rd Monday in February. 10 months after his assassination in 1866, the first address commemorating Lincoln's birthday was given to Congress. Historian and statesman George Bancroft wrote in his memorial remarks that Lincoln was to be remembered through all time by his countrymen. 7 years later, a holiday celebrating Lincoln was proposed by Julius Francis, a shopkeeper from Buffalo, New York. Francis began sending Congress elaborate memorial pamphlets as part of his campaign to establish a legal holiday for Lincoln on February 12th. These memorials, signed by 50 residents of Buffalo, were placed on parchment and blacked with a beautiful blue silk and 50 white stars, exquisite needlework, inserted into a folding case of French walnut and enclosed in a Russia leather case. A year later, Francis organized the first public celebration of Lincoln's birth in Buffalo, New York, which was celebrated each year until Francis's death in 1881. This event included many readings in honor of Lincoln, as well as an official address, singing, prayer, and instrumental music. Francis also incorporated the original Lincoln Birthday Association on December 24th in 1877. But this sentiment was not shared by all Americans, nor acted upon at the federal level. Lincoln's legacy remained controversial and tied to the bitter politics of Reconstruction. The South, which made up 1/5 of the U.S. population at the time, was still occupied by the U.S. military, while many Southerners sincerely grieved over Lincoln's death, with notable expressions of regret by Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee. Others were unable to put the bitterness of the war behind them. As Southern diarist Kate Stone once wrote, "What torrents of blood Lincoln has caused to flow, and how Seward has aided him in his bloody work, I cannot be sorry for their fate. They deserve it. They have reaped their just reward." The North-South split was not the only obstacle to Lincoln's designating Lincoln's birthday as a national holiday. With the American centennial fast approaching, George Washington still overshadowed Lincoln in the public's memory. Beyond pointing to the practical problem of their birthdays being just 10 days apart, critics argued that honoring Lincoln would depreciate the value of Washington's unique place in American history. As the Times argued, it may be doubted whether the distinctive honor conferred on the memory of Washington should be divided even in the case of Abe Lincoln. Their concern did not deter a gentleman named Hannibal Hamlin, Lincoln's vice president from 1861 to 1865, and the former governor of Maine, from taking up the cause. In 1951, a President's Day National Committee was formed by Harold Fisher. He lobbied for the creation of a day honoring all presidents to be celebrated on the 4th of March, the original inauguration date. This act was defeated by the Senate Judiciary Committee on the grounds the holiday would be too close to the Lincoln and Washington birthdays. Though not federally enacted, many state governors liked the idea and proclaimed President's Day a holiday. Establishing Lincoln's birthday as a federal holiday was further complicated by the passing of the 1968 Uniform Holiday Act. I'm just wondering how many of you have ever heard of that, which moved several federal holidays, including Memorial Day and Washington's birthday, to specific Mondays throughout the year in order to create more three-day weekends. Eventually, several states created their own President's Day holidays to be observed on the third Monday in February. The celebration has been enacted in some form by 38 states, though never federally, and each varies from state to state. And while some mark the day as a specific remembrance of Washington and Lincoln, like Arizona, others view it as a day of general recognition for all U.S. presidents. Alabama celebrates Washington and Jefferson as opposed to the more common combination of Washington and Lincoln. A few states observe Washington's birthday in February and then celebrate President's Day in a different month. 18 states don't specify anything about President's Day. A few state governments have enacted legislation recognizing Lincoln's birthday on February 12th as its own official holiday, most notably Illinois, the land of Lincoln, and his adopted home state, celebrates Lincoln's birthday as an official school holiday, along with a few other states, including New York, Connecticut, and Missouri. However, the number of states honoring Lincoln has declined in recent years. Both California and New Jersey ended their celebration of Lincoln's birthday, and unfortunately, more states now celebrate Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, as a holiday for state employees than to celebrate Lincoln's birthday. But without a national holiday officially, Lincoln still remains amongst the most admired American presidents. His face is printed on the $5 bill and stamped on the penny. He has national shrines in 3 states, including one of America's most iconic ones in D.C., the Lincoln Memorial. Though not federally recognized, his birthday is still recognized. Wreaths are laid at Lincoln landmarks all across the country, including his birthplace in Kentucky, his tomb in Springfield, and of course the famous Lincoln Memorial, the walls of which are still inscribed with the following: "In this temple, as in the hearts of the people for whom he saved the Union, the memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined forever." Congratulations, Abe, on his birthday tomorrow. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
thank you for bringing all that information to us. It was very, very interesting. There's a lot of things in there I didn't know. And when I was a kid, just a few years ago, we had Lincoln's birthday off on the 12th and Washington's birthday off on the 22nd. And I didn't realize that some of these states aren't even hardly recognizing it anymore. And that's a shame, because I truly recognize him as the best president, the greatest president we've ever had, because he truly gave his life, but he also gave his family. You know, he had a lot of problems with his family and his wife and different things, and just a lot of it was just because of the stress that he was going through. And when our family visited the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C., it just about tears your heart away when you look down there at the booth he was sitting in that night. So God bless Abraham Lincoln and his family.
Thank you, Mr. Elsasser. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda?
Can I get a motion to put this consent agenda on the floor, please? Thank you, Ms. Pastucha, and a second from Ms. Bryant. Hello, Brandy. Mr. Fennell? Thank you very much. We're going to pull C8. Anyone else? Seeing none, then the motion on the floor on the consent agenda is all are in except C8. Please vote.
Okay, one moment. Board Member Duncan,
Aye.
Board Member Renault,
Aye.
Board Member Rutherford,
Aye.
Board Member Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Member Sulzer,
I had a hard time hearing what we were voting on.
it's the consent agenda,
Aye.
except for item 8. Board Member Windisch,
Aye.
Thank you.
Member Rand, you're missing.
I'm missing.
There we go. 18 ayes.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on C8? Thank you, Mr. Fennel. And a second. Dr. Blair, thank you. I asked if Jim would pull C8 for me so I could get a little discussion about the business plan being approved, our part for the Scott Landfill Committee. Just thought it felt a little bit of discussion, especially for some of our new folks.
So happy to explain that, Mr. Chairman, especially for new board members. In cooperation through a long-standing intergovernmental agreement, we own and operate a landfill. The landfill committee is the governance body that oversees the operation of the city-county landfill. Your representative is Member Williams, along with other private citizens that the chairman appoints and you consent to. Part of that intergovernmental agreement structure requires that both this body and the Peoria City Council on an annual basis adopt the annual spending plan for the landfill committee. The committee themselves unanimously approved their spending plan back in December. And this is the first opportunity to get it before you. I believe the City Council has approved it as well. The proposed budget for 2021 has $471,400 in revenues and $458,500 in expenditures. So that would be a budget where they are planning to add to their reserves for future capital projects. The amount that we have budgeted in our budgets and you appropriated when you adopted the budget for support to the landfill committee, which is largely legal representation from the state's attorney's office, is already obviously a part of our budget. Those would be on the revenue side of the numbers that you're seeing here tonight. A couple of other key factors for you for FY21. There is an increased host fee for landfill number 2. Landfill number 2 is the current landfill in operation. Secondly, the costs that the city and the county pay to the landfill committee for those, whether it be staffing it from a clerical perspective or providing legal advice, those remain unchanged from the previous year. The revenues assumed 170,000 tons of waste to come into the landfill in calendar year 21, they will be also undertaking a pretty substantial capital improvement project starting in 2021. I'm happy to answer any questions, and if I left anything out, I know Member Williams will more than be happy to supplement that.
Thank you, Mr. Sorrell. Mr. Fennel?
Yes, Scott, how much more capacity, when is that going to be filled?
Great question, Mr. Fennel. So the capacity of landfill number 2 is always a moving target based on the amount of waste that's coming in and We see some waste being diverted through recycling efforts and whatnot. I believe the latest estimate, and Ms. Williams can correct me if I'm wrong, but the latest estimate is landfill number 2 should be going into the closure phase of the process, I believe in the next probably 2 years, maybe 3 years, at which time landfill number 3, which this body previously approved the siting of, and the landfill committee approved an operating contract with Peoria Disposal Company to operate landfill number 3, then that would come online. Landfill number 2 is currently operated by Waste Management. Sharon, am I kind of pretty close on the timeline?
Yeah, it's mid to late 2023. A couple of things to note is that there hasn't been an increase in the host fee since 2016. And the tonnage has dropped about 5% a year. So we're going to start looking at the cost each year now instead of waiting 6 years or so to look at the cost. Excuse me. Sorry, I should also add that the capital project is going to be the leachate system, and we're looking at about $150,000 for that.
Does everybody know what the leachate system is? Just what it sounds like. Okay. Mr. Elsasser.
Either Sharon or Scott, is the reason why the tonnage is dropping 5% a year because people are recycling? Is that probably the main reason, or what is the discussion around the table?
Yeah, I mean, like Scott said, it's kind of a moving target on when we're going to be closing 2, and it keeps moving back. When I initially got on the landfill committee, I believe it was late 2022. And now we're into mid to late 2023. So the recycling is making a difference.
Other members, anybody on the phone have any questions? All right, so item on the floor is C8. It's got a motion and a second. I'll call the question. Please vote.
Board Member Duncan? Board Member Duncan?
Aye.
Board Member Relaford?
Aye.
Member Renault?
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Member Salzer?
Aye.
And Member Windisch?
Aye.
18 ayes.
Thank you.
Zoning ordinance and resolutions. Item 1. Case number 004-21-V, petition of Peoria County, a text amendment to amend Chapter 20, Article 3, Section 3.5, Special Use Permits, and Article 11, Section 11.1, definitions of the Peoria County Code. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends approval. The Land Use Committee concurs.
Motion to approve from Mr. Dillon, a second from Dr. Blair. Questions, comments? Mr. Dillon.
Thank you, Chairman. I know it doesn't say it anywhere in there, but for everybody to understand, this is a wind ordinance. So we needed to clean up the wind ordinance. We have not, as you drive around Illinois, you start to see more wind turbines. We have none here, but there's starting to be some interest in Peoria. So we needed to take a look at it and update it. So, but by reading that, you have no idea that you're voting on a wind ordinance. But that's thanks to staff, Andrew and Kathy and their team, for putting this together. This was something that they looked at over extensive months and communicated to other governments that have wind ordinances. So thank you to staff, as always, for doing a great job.
Mr. Ricker?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Dillon, for bringing that up. I guess, could you or Kathy highlight maybe just the significant changes? I don't need granular detail, but some of the more significant ones that we added just to this ordinance?
Yes, thank you. We modeled this after our solar ordinance. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we had quite a few solar cases. Part of our submittal requirements at that time for a petition for zoning required a number of studies and reports to be submitted to allow the board members, for both the zoning board and the county board members, to have that information up front. Those are some of the things we added to this as well. You'll see a lot of similar ones, FAA compliance, the utility interconnection. We also added some that were wind specific, such as avian studies and a shadow flicker analysis for non-participating properties, which were adjacent. And then a road agreement was very important, so that there is some kind of road agreement in place before they even bring their petition to our office.
Thank you. You're good? Okay. Mr. Elsasser.
There's adequate language in here for in the event that something happens down the road where they close it down or whatever, so that there's funds available to
Right.
disperse with all the material and everything.
Yes, our existing ordinance already had language for decommissioning and financial security for
Okay.
that instance.
Because somebody just pointed out to me today, I think it's out in Seattle, Washington, and they showed a picture of the fiberglass wind turbines that had been in existence for many years, and they were worn out, and they cut them all into pieces and put them in the ground, and they were going to bury them. And I said, I wouldn't accept that at all, because they would never disintegrate in the ground. So
Yep. Not only does our ordinance address it, but the Department of Agriculture also has that language that addresses it.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, please vote.
Member Duncan?
Aye.
Member Relaford?
Aye.
Member Renault?
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Member Sulzer?
Aye.
And Member Windisch?
Aye.
18 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you.
Item 2, case number 045-20-U, petition of Gary Edmonds, a special use as required in section 20-5.11.2.3.b of the Unified Development Ordinance. This section allows for a special use for warehousing, mini storage in the I-2 Heavy Industrial Zoning District. The petitioner proposes to bring an existing self-storage into compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance. The parcel is located in Limestone Township. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends approval. The Land Use Committee concurs.
Mr. Dillon and Mr. Elsasser, are you on the second? Thank you. Discussion? Anyone on the phone? Did I hear a peep? Discussion?
Oh, aye.
That's Betty voting aye already.
It's getting out there, huh?
Yeah.
I'm getting out there.
Anybody want to go ahead and pre-motion their vote?
I think it's good.
That's cute. Thank you, Miss Betty. All right, seeing no discussion, hearing no other sounds from the phone, please vote.
Member Relaford?
Aye.
Member Renault?
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Member Sulzer?
Aye.
And Member Windisch?
Aye.
18 ayes, 0 nays.
Another 18 zip. Okay.
Item 3, a resolution from your executive committee recommending approval of an engagement agreement with the Center for Government Studies at Northern Illinois University for strategic planning services in the amount not to exceed $33,000.
Thank you. Motion to approve from Mr. Fennel and a second from Ms. Williams. Mr. Sorrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is a resolution to engage the Center for Government Studies at NIU and DeKalb to facilitate a strategic planning process for the board and the organization. For those of you that were around the Horseshoe at the time, the last time we engaged in a strategic planning process was the fall of 2016. And then shortly after you adopted it, we saw significant financial stress on the organization and specifically the general fund, and effectively shelved that strategic plan and have done some work to achieve some of the priorities that were in it, but really have not. So what we will be doing here with the Center for Government Studies is a reset, something that this body and this organization really hasn't done in almost a decade, in terms of looking at a mission and vision for what you see the organization and our role in the community being a decade or 15 years out, and then what will be some strategic goals and priorities that that we can work on to then move the needle in achieving that mission and vision. Center for Government Studies comes highly recommended, and they have a significant amount of experience in working with local governments here in Illinois. And they also understand the nuances between municipal government and county government. Prior county clients have included Livingston County, Winnebago County, which is where Rockford is, DeKalb County, Lake County, and they just finished an engagement for the third update to the McHenry County strategic plan. As I said in committee, even though this is affiliated with Northern Illinois University, it is not a bunch of pure academics that will be facilitating our process. They're largely retired local government managers and chief administrative officers, mostly in municipal government, but some county as well. There will be plenty of opportunity for you, the board, to engage in the process along with our elected and appointed officials. We intend to have a survey tool for all of our team members. There's a data component that we talked about in the committee meeting that still needs to be refined, but we'll be looking to do that as well. So I'm looking forward to the process. This has been something that you've pointed out the last couple of years in my evaluation. We had talked about it or had planned to start working on it pre-pandemic last year, but obviously the pandemic got in the way of that. So I'm looking for the process, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sorrell. Questions? Mr. Ricker, then Mr. Elsasser.
Yeah, probably not as much question as a statement. I'm encouraged by this. I'm looking forward to having an outcome that we as the county can help improve the health of our community, the county. And when I say health, there's a lot of social, economic things that would build up the county itself. And so look at all the factors within the county of how we can improve that. So all members that live in the county, all residents that live in the county and community will see a benefit that will shine a light on Peoria County in the state of Illinois as a place that you want to come and live and work and be part of. So just that's kind of one of my bigger pictures I'd like to see out of this. Thank you.
Thank you. I share in your enthusiasm. Mr. Elsasser.
Well, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but we've been doing this off and on for many, many years, and I've seen a little benefit, but not as much as I would like. And I think one of the most effective sessions that we ever had was when our county administrator actually, and that was back when Patrick was here. He actually was the leader of the sessions, and everybody just got in the room and talked and aired their feelings out and shared what they thought was necessary and good for the county, and as far as goals and visions, and that's just my humble opinion. So I will be a no vote tonight, but I'll be participating in the sessions if you do pass it, because we all need to be there and give our input.
Thank you, sir. Just for reference, what year would that have been when Patrick Urick led those himself?
It was before you came on the board. But he actually led the session, I believe.
Thank you. Dr. Blair, an academic.
An academic with a PhD whose second major is strategic management.
Excellent.
So I just wanted to say I see the value in having an external facilitator for a process like this. It helps make sure that all sides get heard without an agenda from one person or another. So I do see the benefit. The main issue with a process like this is that sometimes you spend a lot of time on this process and then the responses get put in a bottom drawer and no one ever does anything. So all I ask is that we're committed that if we do a process like this, that we will, go on and actually implement what we discussed during that meeting or those meetings.
Thank you. Others? Hearing none. Anyone on the phone, comments on the resolution? It's a good tuna fish sandwich you guys are sharing there. Okay. I want to clarify from the last executive committee meeting where I weighed in on this subject for a few minutes. I do want to engage other governments in this process with us. I do not want or intend for that to be intergovernmental meetings of the bodies like we had last October. One of you had the courage to call me on the phone and say, "What are you thinking?" Because there are several of them that interest me, not just the city or the Peoria and Dunlap school districts, if you want to talk to other structures within the definition of governmental bodies here in Peoria County, let me know. My thought at this point is to have like teams of 3 that don't violate the Open Meetings Act. Maybe council thinks we probably ought to have them public. I don't know. But some of the stuff between the governments that could be sorted out with simple teams of people that meet and discuss where the common agenda items and how we can move forward with more shared services or overlapping taxes that could be reduced if there was a better strategic planning concept. As people around here always know, I'm talking about public works. But that's what I meant by that, and Scott plans to stick with it unless the body is vehemently against it. I think we have to invite the other governments in the room to achieve the common. Come to Peoria, we have cheap energy, a great transportation system, affordable housing, ready workforce, etc. There are a lot of things that make Peoria very attractive for small to mid-sized industry. And Stephen and I may run into those documents from time to time. Our cost of power here is amazing for industry to use, so amazingly cheap. Mr. Dillon?
Chairman, speaking of that then, do you think it would be best to revive our Metro Peoria committee that we've had in the past that would meet and do that? Because my only concern about having we haven't had a study in so long is I think we need to find out who we are before we can even tell other groups what we are, because we haven't had one in so long, and that's my only concern.
That's different. Who we are, that's a branding thing. That's not necessarily a planning question. Well, Metro Peoria still exists in a form as a committee, but it didn't include all those stakeholders that I described. It was strictly the city and the county. But I hear what you mean about the branding. Anyone else? All right, please vote.
Member Duncan,
Aye.
Member Relaford,
Aye.
Member Renault,
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Member Salzer,
Aye.
Member Windisch,
Aye.
17 ayes, 1 nay.
And just for record clarity, I also intend the Peoria County-wide elected officials to be one of those subgroups to plan with too. So in case you heard that last week, but not this week, I still mean that. You can tell the sheriff that for me, okay? All right.
Item 4, a resolution from the Chairman of County Operations Committee and the County Administrator recommending approval of a collective bargaining agreement between Peoria County and ASME-PICA 3586.
Mr. Renault?
Yes. I'll put the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Would there be a second? Thank you, Mr. Ricker.
Betty, will second.
Oh, Betty, we'll give you the second. Happy to. Since you're the vice chair. Excellent.
Thank you.
Do you mind, Mr. Ricker? Mr. Ricker's yielding to your second. Okay. Mr. Sorrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is for the collective bargaining agreement between ourselves and ASME-PICA Local 3586. That's the bargaining unit that represents largely our clerical team members. There are other members, obviously, but that's the largest group. It can be members of this bargaining unit can be found in all of the elected offices. If you recall, last spring, I believe it was on the night that we actually, you voted to reduce expenditures due to anticipated loss of revenue related to the pandemic. You also rejected the prior tentative agreement for this bargaining unit. We've since gone back to the table. We've worked with Mr. Renault's committee in negotiating terms and conditions for this new collective bargaining agreement. As it says in the agenda briefing, it is a 3-year agreement. Wages for calendar year 2020, which would be year 1 of the agreement, are 0%. Wage increases as a cost of living increase for year 2, which is the current year, is 2%. And then year 3, which will be in 2022, is 2.5%. There were a series of language changes that we also made to the agreement, and there is a $1,000 signing bonus. I can tell you that the union has ratified this agreement. Mr. Renault's committee did, via poll vote, approve the tentative agreement unanimously, and so it comes to you tonight for your approval. Just as one final data point, the difference between this agreement and what you rejected last spring, there is $125,000 savings in wages, and when you include benefits and pensions, the all-in savings is $145,000. Happy to answer any questions, and Assistant County Administrator Musselman is here as well to answer anything that I can't.
Thank you. Mr. Sorrell, Mr. Renault, or any comments from the County Operations Committee?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I wanted to first and foremost thank all of our employees and the members of PICA for being patient with us. Like I said, like Scott had said, this was supposed to come to us, and we voted it down last spring. Since then, big thank you to Shauna, Angela, and Nicole for negotiating what I feel is a very fair and responsible contract. While they are getting raises, there is going to be some premium increases for their insurance, and I think this is extremely fair, and I appreciate everybody's effort, and I hope we get 18 ayes for this.
Thank you, Mr. Renault. Others on the phone, do you care to comment? Hearing none. Anyone else in the room? Thank you then to your team and the team from the bargaining unit as well. I think as far as negotiations can go, where is Shauna? Hi, Shauna. I think this one went swimmingly well. So thank you for that effort, Shauna. I remember when we dropped you into the pot of boiling water a few years ago, you used to say, oh, this is my first one. This is my first one. This would be the end of which bargaining unit, total number of agreements since we dropped you in that. 15. You see how quickly they grow up? Thank you. All right, everyone. Anyone else? Please vote.
Board Member Duncan?
Aye.
Member Relaford?
Aye.
Member Renault?
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Member Salzer?
Aye.
And Member Windisch?
Aye.
18 ayes.
Thank you.
Item number 5, suspension of rules.
Could I get a motion to suspend the rules, please? Thank you. Ms. Jennifer Groves Allison and Mr. James C. Dillon on the second. Council, please help.
Yes, you're voting to suspend your rules because this proclamation did not come up through committee. The reason this always happens is that the governor does his extension and then we follow suit, and the timing doesn't work out that it goes through committee.
Thank you, and thank you. Clear as mud. Got it. Everybody on the phone, please vote.
Member Duncan?
Aye.
Member Relaford?
Aye.
Member Renault?
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Member Salzer?
Aye.
And Member Windisch?
Nay.
17 ayes, 1 nay. Item 6, proclamation extending the declaration of emergency due to COVID-19 in Peoria County, Illinois.
Motion to approve, please. Mr. Fennell, thank you. Mr. Watkins weighs in with a second. Motion on the floor is to extend the county executive and myself the emergency powers. I don't think we've used in a year now. Further, but more importantly, keeps our relevant application for reimbursed funds from both state and federal sources an eligible application when it's time for us to reapply. Anything else, Scott? Okay, I stumbled through that. Thank you. Please vote.
Member Duncan?
Aye.
Member Relaford?
Aye.
Member Renault?
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Member Salzer?
Aye.
And Member Windisch?
Nay.
17 ayes, 1 nay. Miscellaneous and announcements.
Starting with Mr. Watkins. Roll on. Mr. Alsasser.
During the public safety meeting last month, in January, I thought about bringing up the reform bill that was passed in Springfield, but I assumed since it was already passed, it may not do any good to belabor the point. But how is it going to affect us? Number one is my first question. But then it was quite interesting today on the Chicago station in that they said the governor has actually not signed it yet.
Right.
Because there's a lot of pushback, and so I would like to see Peoria County weigh in politically. You know, I've always been one that would have said that, you know, we don't want the state telling us what to do and with their unfunded mandates and different things, but, you know, our officers are very important to us and our citizens are as well, you know, and we want a good balance between the two, you know, in the passage of this bill. And And so I would like to see the county weigh in on it because it's probably going to affect us financially, and it could affect from what they were saying on the Chicago radio station, it could affect the officers and in their duties as well.
Ms. Groves Allison.
Well, as someone who doesn't sit on the Public Safety Committee, I would think before we would do that, would we be able to have the sheriff address us as a whole?
Well, I think you should start with the state's attorney and perhaps the chief judge and then the sheriff. I mean, I think there are many parts of the legislation that impact beyond just policing. So it is a multi-part issue. You and then Mr. Dillon. Go ahead, Mr.
Could we ask all those that are involved, and I'm sure the sheriff has already weighed in, are there changes that they would like to see in the bill?
Well, using Jennifer's example.
I couldn't hear what she said, I'm sorry.
I think she was saying perhaps we could use the Public Safety Committee to vet this. Is that what you said?
Oh, I was just saying, it sounded like maybe this was a conversation that took place in public safety.
Oh.
But since I don't sit on public safety, before I would go along with a position from the county as a whole, I would want some conversation on these
Which
topics.
is how I deduced we need to go to public safety. That must be.
And I would want the information from the sheriff and the chief judge and all the people you mentioned.
Public safety chair is.
Paul.
Mr. Rosenbaum, are you hearing this dialogue?
Can you speak up a little bit, Mr. Chairman? I couldn't catch that.
Sure, Mr. Elsasser and others have raised the question about perhaps putting the law enforcement professionals together to discuss the impact of the law enforcement reform bill that's pending the governor's signature. So, in my view, we could do this two ways. We can have a public safety meeting, and you could invite the affected parties, or we could have a committee of the whole and inform the entire board at one time what the issues are.
Chair.
Well, I think we should have something to talk it over. My goal is to make sure that our sheriff's department doesn't get overwhelmed or taken where they can't strangled or where they can't do stuff that they're supposed to do. So if others are wanting to have a meeting, I'd be more than willing to have that.
Mr. Dillon.
Chairman, this is one I've long respectfully disagreed with my colleague, Mr. Elsasser, on debating state or federal bills among this horseshoe with all the other work that we have. And I get this can generally affect us financially and stuff. So to have a comprehensive discussion of what financially affects us, I get that. But to debate the merit of the bill is not what this board was elected for. That was what Senator Kaler, Jahan Gordon, and our state reps were elected for, because we've talked about this before, going down the rabbit holes of everybody has different things in legislation that they go on, and to debate this. And Chairman, I would want this, if this is something that this board wants to go to, I would say that this is under Finance Legislative Affairs, that this would be underneath yours and Jim's purview, because it is something, but I would be against having any legislative discussion or wanting to pass a resolution. Not that I don't support police and the people in that bill, but this was what our statewide electeds were to discuss, because this can become very contentious around this horseshoe to discuss something like that. So if you do have a problem with it, I would say take it up with the state legislators privately as your citizen, but for us to debate that around here, I don't see that being positive for this county at all. And that's been consistent when we wanted to debate other federal and state legislative bills around here. And I know you've heard me say that numerous times, and Alan would get sick of me saying it too, but that's the way I feel about it.
Oh, I've been on the losing end of many of those discussions in this room, so I can think of a couple. But what I am still hearing, though, is is there sufficient question in the minds of the members as to what this bill entails? And I really think that's where Mr. Elsesser was going when he opened the comment up.
Right.
And if so, then could we at least get an understanding from a committee meeting as to what the highlights and lowlights of the bill are as it impacts our organization? Isn't that where you started?
Yes, and my main question is, before that, is how is it going to affect the sheriff and the chief judge, and I can't remember who else you mentioned.
State's Attorney's Office.
State's Attorney. How is it going to affect them? That's what I would like to know. Before I would ever think about weighing in. I mean, if they're all satisfied with it, I mean, we have nothing to weigh in on. But if it's going to affect them in a negative manner, then I'd like to at least hear about it for discussion purposes. So thank you.
Okay, so does anybody want to help me find a compromise here? You just want me to invent one on the fly? Anyone on the phone here? Let me ask this then. Would it be okay if I asked the sheriff, the state's attorney, and the chief judge, one, if they're concerned enough to want to tell us what's pending, and two, if they want to do that, then we'll host a meeting directed by one of the committees for that purpose. Is that fine?
It sounds good, because that's...
Okay, thank you. Anyone else under miscellaneous?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Phil.
Yes, Phil.
I don't know whether you guys can hear me, but I've had a difficult time. I wish it would have come through as well as when Mr. Rosenbaum spoke. I could hear him very clearly, but I've had a difficult time. But I got to thinking, especially when we had our start, in which we, of course, take a moment of silence as well as say the Pledge of Allegiance. And in that moment of silence, I realized tonight that it's done for a really good purpose, because it taught me to think about the passing of Mary Harkrader. Mary Harkrader, who was one of the really true positive advocates for the city of Peoria, and a very worthwhile individual who spent most of her years in life here in Peoria, because she spent her early background, of course, growing up in the area of Pontiac. And then, of course, she came to Peoria, went to nursing school, and then from then got married to Al Harkrader, and they raised a good family. Some of the children, of course, went to Peoria High School. But this wonderful woman was a good public servant. Now, some of you may not have ever worked with Mary, but she served on the county board just like many of us. And after that, of course, as a public servant, she became our county clerk for several years. And during that time, she was respected as one of the most professional individuals around. And I truly say that she was fair and honest, and that's what we need in our public servants. I know this, that her colleagues throughout the state had a deep respect for Mary Harkrader, and she truly lived a good life. And that's what I remembered during that moment of silence.
Thank you, Phil. We're at miscellaneous. Mr. Fennell.
Yes, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look over the National Association of Counties newsletter that came out, but got a nice article recognizing Mr. Sherrill as our county administrator, so dig it out, take a look at it. If you're not getting the newspaper, let administration know so you can get it if you're getting the newsletter. But it's on page 9, so very nice, Scott.
Thank you.
It even
Anyone else over here?
I was wishing that Monica Hendrickson was here. I didn't know if anybody was able to give an update on the vaccines situation and how we were doing on that.
I was with her yesterday. Representative Bustos was here checking on what the federal support looked like since the new year, as in change of administrations, I think. In her district, Peoria County has distributed more vaccines than any other county, in multiples, actually. But there are still way too many gaps in the system. I will ask her to send a written update to us. She has one at least once a week come out, so it's not new work. But there are multiple layers of issues, but there are also multiple avenues of solutions coming now, including 2 major national pharmacies that are going to jump in this as well. We're putting out between 1,500 and 2,000 vaccinations a week. And you're now past the point where the first-timers are going back for second-timers. So we don't get very much supply to this county. It comes through the governor's office. They have a call about what they can send you, and then you have a call about what you need the next day. There's a little bit of horse trading, but right now you're seeing the county vaccinate between 1,500 and 2,000 people a week. I'll get a document to you, and I can also get the web link where she's constantly updating the changes and the pending changes. But there's some stuff in about a week and a half that's supposed to increase the capacity by 26% and get that stuff out the door to the communities to inject.
On my drive here, I heard a news report on NPR that was talking about, people who don't have access to online and how they are having a little bit more difficulty getting their appointments. I know I just found out last week or the week before that I was in the 1B, and so I've signed up, and I don't know how I would have done that if it hadn't been online. So that was something that I didn't know how that was taken into consideration, but especially our elderly population who may not be computer savvy.
It's a mess. The 2 healthcare systems are calling their patients based on how they fit the prioritization. I don't know if they're doing it alphabetically or not, but that's an example of how people are being contacted in the more manual way. But of course, not everybody has a phone either. So residential care centers, congregate care centers, shelters are all being managed through a strike force that actually goes out and seeks to vaccinate everybody standing. The health department and our company are involved in that. That's how I know that part. So it's a big, complicated straw to kind of draw all the information up through, but I will ask her to send us a written report. She's got it. Mr. Fennell?
One loophole that I had a person that's 70 years old contact me because they contacted OSF to try to get the shots, and we're told that she doesn't have a family doctor. She's healthy, so she doesn't have a doctor that she goes to, so they couldn't take her. So that's a loophole that we need to somewhat address.
It's a loophole, but she's still completely eligible for the vaccine based on her age alone.
But OSF wouldn't put her in the queue.
They may not put her in the queue, but we'll take her at Headington.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely take her at Headington, or if necessary, go to Chillicothe. Okay. All right. So I don't think anybody else has anything to say. I've managed it, Mr. Elsasser.
Very quickly, under appointments, I failed to thank you for addressing the issue of having only 4 people on the new committee to draw the map and adding Linda Daly on there. So thank you for addressing
You're welcome.
that.
Thank you very much. Linda will do a bang-up job. Okay, so we have a executive session to discuss the evaluation and compensation of employees. I'm going to ask us to stay in this room since we're socially distanced. We'll shut the microphone systems down. I'm going to ask Mr. Sorrell to remain for a couple of minutes so we
We
can
need a motion and a second on that, please.
get some timelines straightened up on that, and then we'll dismiss Scott, and Kate will run the show. So if all the non-county board members would please excuse yourselves. Could I get a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of employment-related matters and the discussion of an evaluation and compensation of key employees? Thank you, Ms. Pastusha. Thank you, Mr. Fennell. With Mr. Watkins, your aye on the vote. All those in favor, well, let's just please vote on it while we got the electronics, and you'll call the roll there. Thank you, Rachel.
Board Member Duncan?
Aye.
Board Member Relaford?
Aye.
Member Renault?
Aye.
Member Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Member Sulzer?
Aye.
Member Windisch?
Aye.
Okay, so we're going to ask Scott to stay for the first part of this so we can make sure we're all coordinated. Miss Parker has a grandchild who is leaving for New Orleans, and there's a party. I don't know if Grandma here feels like it's a party for her tonight, so Mike's going to take over notes. We'll shut the sound down here in a sec.
Yep, and then I got to get the okay from Gretchen that you stopped the live. We've stopped the live stream.